Welcome to the Freelance Writing Podcast, hosted by Melanie Green. In this space, we'll discuss freelance writing and all of the challenges that comes with running this type of business. In this episode, we're going to talk about working remotely. So I have worked remotely since 2012 as a freelance writer. I did have some positions before then that were also somewhat remote. So I was working with teams that were not there when I was working at McKinsey and Company. Most of the the different clients and the people I was working with, the partners, they were in the West Coast and I was in Tampa. But that being said, I've worked remotely since 2012 as a freelance writer. Now it's much more common to work remotely than it really was back then. However, there are some real misconceptions people have about working remotely. And I think one of them is that you can work wherever you want and whenever you want to, and you just need a laptop. And I have found that that's not really the case. So over the course of those years, I've had 3 offices, 1 co-working space. Currently, I work out of a lot of libraries. I do have a home office as well, and I've invested a lot in that home office. And that's the thing I really wanted to mention here, is that you're still going to need tools and things to do your job. And so as a freelance writer, yes, you need a computer. But for me, I have a huge monitor, an ergonomic keyboard, a reliable mouse. There's lots of paper supplies that I use for my business. I also do a lot of different things when it comes to recording things, needing headphones, having video calls, needing a webcam, relying on multiple printers in order to get the documents printed that I need. And so whenever I work remotely, I don't have access to those things that I'm used to. I don't have access to my big screen. And so it does take an adjustment. The other thing I want to just point out is I always end up needing paper and pen. So if I'm going to go to a library, let's say, and work, I can use my computer, sure, but I still need a way to get physically organized. And so I think that that's an important thing to note, is you're still going to need things. One of the most effective strategies that I have personally had in terms of being prepared for remote working is to create either a bag or a box that I can take with me with all the supplies that I need. And so for me, what's really worked best is one of those hard-sided file boxes that have a handle and has a little tray on the top and the bottom where I can organize small things like Post-it notes and highlighters and pens. But it also has a bigger section where I can store other things like headphones, microphones, mice, chargers, phone chargers, a planner, a notebook, those types of things. Having it all together makes it really easy to go and do what you need to do, as opposed to having to get each of those things every time. When I worked a lot alone, which I don't necessarily do anymore, but when I worked a lot alone, I actually had a lock that I could lock my computer to the table. So let's say I'm at a Starbucks and I'm by myself and I have my computer set up and I have all sorts of things already going and I have to use the restroom or I want to go get a coffee. I didn't want to leave my computer by itself, right? Because someone can just walk off with my $3,000 Mac, right? So instead of that, there's a lock that you can buy that you can attach to your computer and then you can lock it to like the table leg. And so that was a good strategy for me if I needed to be alone. That's not necessarily the case anymore. You know, I could just tell the other people I'm working with that I'll go ahead and I'll go, and can you keep an eye on my stuff? But when that wasn't an available option, it certainly made a lot of sense to have that lock. I will say it might also make sense to have duplicates. So let's say you have a mouse at your home computer and then you have a mouse that you use when you work remotely. And I think that that could be a good strategy as well and a good investment to not have to try to keep track of those items in between. Where I live, I'm really on a boundary line between multiple counties. And so what I've recently discovered is that you can use the library meeting rooms to have business meetings, have video calls, to have a background that isn't your house, let's say. And so that's become a really important strategy for me and my business to be able to use the libraries, and they're free. You don't necessarily have to be a resident of that county to be able to use some of the resources that are available. So if you want to work remotely, but you don't want to pay for an expensive co-working space, I definitely would recommend looking into your library. When I first got started and throughout grad school, I really worked a lot at Panera's and Starbucks. But the truth is that you have to buy something generally to work there. It isn't a free space. So you have to consider those expenses into your remote working expenses as well. The last thing that I want to mention is that I think when you work remotely, no matter what you do, whether it's an hourly job or a salaried position or you're a freelancer like me, I think that there's this assumption from other people that you don't really have a job, that you're free and available to them. You're home, right? So you must be free. You work remotely, so you can travel whenever you want to. And I think that really hasn't been the case for me because I've had a lot of work to do, right? So I haven't been able to just go up and do whatever I want. I have worked a lot while traveling, and that's true. I have traveled up the eastern seaboard of the United States many times while working, but know that there are challenges that come with that. And so sometimes it is easier just to stay put. I hope this information was really helpful to you. I think that remote working is quite excellent, but it does have its own things to consider. Thanks for spending some time with me discussing freelance writing. If you'd like to connect with me further, please feel free to reach me at my website at www.melaniegreen.info.